When you walk into a typical office today or um, log into a company-wide virtual meeting, everything might look perfectly normal to you.
Right. It just looks like business as usual.
Exactly. People are chatting before the meeting starts, projects are moving across the Kanban boards, the daily machinery of the business is just humming along.
Yeah, on the surface, everything is fine.
But if you know what to look for, you might notice this staggering, almost invisible crisis hiding in plain sight. We are like missing an entire generation of workers.
It really is incredible when you look at the numbers.
Right, because since late 2022, early career hiring across advanced economies, so places like US, UK, Canada, Australia, it has absolutely plummeted.
Just dropped off a cliff.
Yeah, we're talking about a drop of 8 to 11 percentage points below pre-pandemic levels. Just think about that for a second.
It's massive.
That is roughly 1 in every 9 entry-level opportunities simply vanishing, just evaporating into thin air and being handed over to experienced candidates instead.
It is a profound structural shift. And, the reason it's happening so quietly is that many people outside of human resources or maybe corporate strategy haven't fully grasped the scale of it yet.
Oh, absolutely. They just don't see it.
Right, because we aren't just looking at a temporary hiring freeze caused by a blip in the interest rates.
Yeah.
We're looking at a fundamental rewiring of how organizations decide to bring in or completely ignore new talent.
And that brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are unpacking a fascinating new research paper by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover titled The Remote Work AI Paradox: Rethinking the Early Career Hiring Decline.
Such an important paper.
It really is. And our goal today isn't just to report a scary statistic and leave you feeling anxious about the labor market. We're going to cut through all of the noise, figure out exactly what is killing the entry-level job, and most importantly, explore how the smartest organizations out there are actively fighting back.
Yeah, because there are solutions.
Okay, let's unpack this because to solve a mystery, you have to look at the suspects. And in this case, we have two prime suspects that arrived on the scene at the exact same time.
Yeah, the timeline here is critical to the whole paradox. If we look at late 2022, two massive workplace disruptions violently collided.
Suspect number one.
Suspect number one is generative AI. This is when tools like ChatGPT and early enterprise AI co-pilots went mainstream.
Right, the AI boom.
Exactly. Suddenly, organizations had access to technology that could perform all these cognitive analytical tasks. I'm talking about drafting boilerplate emails, cleaning up messy data sets,
Writing basic code.
writing basic code, generating preliminary market reports.
Yeah.
Historically, those specific tasks served as the fundamental training ground for junior staff.
Yeah, the classic entry-level grunt work. I mean, you do the boring stuff so you can learn the data structure of the company.
That is the traditional model, yes. And proponents of the AI replacement theory argue that algorithms have fundamentally restructured the demand for inexperienced labor.
Because why pay someone, right?
Exactly. If you're a mid-level manager, why would you hire a recent graduate, wait 6 months for them to get up to speed, and pay them a full salary to summarize documents, when a large language model can do a highly passable job in about 4 seconds?
It's hard to argue with that logic from a pure cost perspective, but then we have suspect number two.
Right. Suspect number two, the persistence of remote and hybrid work.
Which, the pandemic obviously started earlier, but by late 2022, the norms around hybrid work had stabilized well above pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, people weren't going back 5 days a week.
And remote work creates immense organizational friction when it comes to supervision.
It absolutely kills the shoulder tapping learning.
Yeah. Think about it. When you're physically in an office, you can just lean over to the senior person at the next desk and ask a quick, low-stakes question like how to format a spreadsheet or how to phrase an email to a difficult client.
Very organic.
Right. But in a remote setup, you have to schedule a formal video call or send a direct message, and you're always hoping you aren't interrupting their deep work.
Which creates a huge psychological barrier. Young workers often just don't want to seem incompetent, so they don't ask the question at all.
They just sit there stuck.
Yeah, they completely miss out on that casual observational learning. So we have these two massive trends operating simultaneously. Generative AI is eating the entry-level tasks.
And remote work is making it incredibly difficult to train the people doing the remaining tasks.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is how eager the public, the media, and even some highly respected researchers were to point the finger at just a single villain.
Everybody wanted one easy answer.
Oh, totally. In 2026, a major working paper by Lambert and Schindler caused an absolute stir in the labor economics world.
I remember that paper.
Yeah, they decided to put both of these factors, AI exposure and remote work exposure, into a joint statistical model to see which one was the real job killer.
A kind of statistical showdown.
Right, and their model found that remote work exposure actually predicts the decline in junior hiring much better than AI exposure does.
And people absolutely ran with that narrative.
Oh, they loved it.
They used this one paper to completely exonerate AI. They basically said, see, it's not the robots taking the jobs, it's the fact that nobody wants to commute to the office anymore. The kids just need to get back to their cubicles.
The lazy worker narrative.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, aren't we falling into a massive trap here? I keep thinking about this like a classic whodunit mystery novel.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Like the detective walks into the drawing room, sees two smoking guns on the floor next to the body, and insists there can only be one killer. Aren't we making a huge mistake by assuming one trend is the sole culprit when the entire workplace is undergoing a total simultaneous metamorphosis?
Yes. It is a highly reductive way of looking at a complex system.
Yeah.
And that reductive approach is exactly the methodological trap that Dr. Westover's paper highlights.
Right.
Westover argues that the 2026 Lambert and Schindler study, and honestly, our whole societal way of trying to measure this as a binary either scenario, is fundamentally flawed.
Because life isn't a controlled experiment.
No, it's not. It comes down to something econometricians call the correlated treatment problem.
Okay, hold on. I'm getting lost in the statistical weeds here. If someone puts both of these trends into a complex mathematical model, shouldn't the math be able to isolate them and tell us which one is doing more damage?
Normally, yes. If the two trends affect different groups of people.
Okay.
But that isn't what is happening in the modern economy. Let me translate the math into what is actually happening on the ground.
Please do.
If you look at the specific occupations most exposed to remote work feasibility, white-collar, knowledge-intensive, computer-heavy roles.
Yeah, the laptop class.
Right, the laptop class. They're the exact same occupations most exposed to generative AI capabilities.
Ah, I see.
In the data, the Spearman rank correlation between these two exposures is about 0.77.
Okay, a Spearman rank correlation of 0.77. What does that actually mean in plain English for someone who hasn't taken a stats class in a decade?
Think of a correlation score as a scale from 0 to 1. 0 means two things have absolutely no relationship to each other.
Like shoe size and eye color.
Sure. And 1 means they are perfectly identical. You never see one without the other. So a score of 0.77 is incredibly high.
Wow, okay.
It means these two trends, the ability to work from your couch and the ability for a computer to do your cognitive tasks, are practically superglued together in the economy.
So they always show up at the same time.
Yes. And when two treatments are that highly correlated, statistical models completely break down. They struggle to separately identify the effects.
Because they're tangled up.
Exactly.
Hmm.
The math might arbitrarily attribute the job losses to whichever factor is measured more precisely in the data set, even if both AI and remote work are operating at full force to eliminate the job.
Oh man, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you can't just separate them neatly on a spreadsheet. Think of it like this. A massive storm rolls through a neighborhood. You've got torrential, heavy rain, and you've got hurricane-force winds. After the storm, you find a giant oak tree knocked over in your yard. And someone comes along with a clipboard and tries to mathematically deduce if it was the rain that softened the soil or the wind that pushed the branches that caused the tree to fall.
That's a perfect visual.
But you can't easily separate them because they hit the exact same tree at the exact same time.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. The rain and the wind are overlapping mechanisms affecting the exact same object. You can't blame just the wind.
No, you really can't.
And Westover points out another layer of complexity that makes these academic studies incredibly messy. Like, how do we even define what a junior or entry-level worker is in today's economy?
Well, I would assume it's just someone young or someone with a job title that literally says junior. Is it more complicated than that?
Far more complicated. Researchers often rely on automated algorithms that parse thousands of resumes or job postings to categorize who is senior and who is junior.
Oh, relying on algorithms to study algorithms?
Exactly. But think about the real world. A 25-year-old software engineer who has already job hopped twice and has 2 prior roles on their resume occupies a very different professional position than a 25-year-old management consultant who's been at the exact same firm for 2 years.
Right, totally different experience levels.
Yet An algorithm parsing their resumes might code them identically as entry-level simply because of their age or their total tenure in the workforce.
Which creates a massive blind spot, because if we don't even know who is a junior worker, how can we measure if their jobs are disappearing?
Exactly the issue.
Mm.
Furthermore, studies often look at job postings that require, say, 3 years of experience or less as a proxy for entry level.
Here, this sounds standard.
But we know from labor economics that employer-stated requirements on a job posting are often just negotiable signals.
Oh, yeah.
They aren't binding constraints.
We've all seen those viral screenshots of entry-level job postings that demand like 5 years of experience in a software framework that was only invented 3 years ago.
Yes, the time-traveling programmer.
Exactly. The job posting is a corporate wish list, not a reflection of reality.
That happens constantly. So if our measurements of who is actually junior are blurry and our two prime suspects, AI and remote work, are perfectly correlated in the data, concluding that AI has no effect based on one statistical model is incredibly premature.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Both mechanisms are clearly operating simultaneously. Generative AI genuinely reduces the demand for raw task execution, while remote work genuinely increases the friction and cost of supervision.
Okay, so the data is messy, the academic models are fighting each other, and the measurement tools are flawed.
Basically, yes.
The temptation here is to just throw our hands up and ignore the whole thing until the economists figure it out. But we can't do that.
No, we absolutely can't.
We have to look at the fallout,
Mhm.
because the consequences of this paradox are devastatingly real, both for you listening to this and for the global economy.
The stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah.
And they play out on two different levels. For the individual worker, we see what labor economists call scarring effects.
Scarring effects. That sounds permanent.
It often is.
Yeah.
When young workers miss out on these critical early career roles, the damage isn't just a temporary setback of a few months of unemployment. They suffer delayed entry into the labor market.
Because they just can't get their foot in the door.
Exactly. Research on cohorts who graduate during deep recessions shows this clearly. Missing that first crucial step predicts lower lifetime earnings, slower career progression, and diminished job satisfaction that literally haunts them for decades.
Wow. Because they miss out on that critical compounding window of skill development.
Exactly.
It's like starting a retirement account 10 years late. You can never really make up for the lost time.
That compounding effect is very real.
Yeah.
They end up with weaker professional networks and are forced to make difficult choices, like they might have to accept positions in less preferred sectors that don't utilize their degrees.
Underemployment.
Yes. Or they end up competing in highly crowded applicant pools for the very few entry-level jobs that remain. And, this falls unevenly across the demographics.
Powerful.
If you have a wealthy family, a strong alumni network, or elite credentials, you might bypass the formal entry barriers through a back channel.
Your parents know a guy.
Right. But if you don't have that network, you are completely locked out.
And from an organizational standpoint, it feels like companies are walking right into a long-term trap.
Oh, they are?
Sure, a firm might look at their quarterly budget and say, great news, we saved $2 million by not hiring a cohort of 22-year-olds this year, and we just bought AI software for $50,000 to do their jobs.
Short-term thinking.
But they are essentially externalizing their training costs. They want a highly skilled senior workforce to magically appear in 5 years, but they refuse to be the ones to train them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, organizations are fundamentally eroding their own long-term adaptive capacity. They are cutting off the pipeline for future leadership, and perhaps most critically, they are losing tacit knowledge.
Tacit knowledge. I've heard that term thrown around. What is the mechanism there? Why is it so hard to capture?
Well, tacit knowledge is the vital unspoken company memory. It is highly context-dependent information.
Like what?
It's knowing how to navigate a specific major client's quirky communication preferences. It's knowing who to call in the IT department and exactly what to say to them when a specific legacy server crashes.
Oh, right, the unwritten rule.
Exactly. It's knowing how to read the room during a tense negotiation and realizing when to stop pushing an argument.
Yeah, you can't put that in a PDF.
You really can. That knowledge simply does not live in an employee handbook, and an AI model cannot replicate it because it isn't written down anywhere in the training data.
Because it's invisible.
It is relationship embedded. It transfers organically from senior staff to junior staff through observation, mentorship, and collaborative real-time problem solving.
I want you, the listener, to think about your own first job for a second. Think about how much you learned just by sitting quietly in a room, listening to a senior colleague handle a difficult phone call with a vendor.
Yes, absorbing it.
Or standing at a whiteboard trying to untangle a messy operational problem together. You weren't formally being trained in those moments. Nobody booked a calendar invite for learning Module 4.
Right.
But you were absorbing the DNA of the profession. What happens to a company when that organic learning completely disappears?
The company becomes deeply brittle. When a senior person retires or quits, that unspoken knowledge walks out the door with them.
Brain drain.
Total brain drain. The organization loses its ability to innovate and adapt because it has no fresh perspectives challenging its operational inertia, and no young leaders who truly understand the foundational mechanics of the business.
So we've painted a pretty bleak picture here. We've got messy academic data, broken learning pipelines, and massive scarring effects on young workers.
It's a tough situation.
It begs the question, is this just the new normal? Are we entirely doomed to a future with no junior staff? Or is anyone actually figuring out how to train a 22-year-old in a world where a robot can do their job and their boss lives 3 states away?
Luckily, no, we aren't doomed.
Thank goodness.
The second half of Westover's paper proves that junior displacement is an organizational choice, not a technological certainty. There is an adaptation playbook,
Okay, let's hear the playbook.
and the companies running that playbook are doing it by confronting the friction of remote work and the disruption of AI head-on. They are re-architecting the job itself.
Okay, let's get into the specifics.
Let's look at structured onboarding first. We established that remote environments create supervision friction.
Right.
So look at a company like GitLab. They operate fully remotely, but they don't just leave their juniors isolated on an island. They adopted what they call remote-first documentation protocols.
Which sounds like a fancy way of saying they have a big corporate wiki. Does that actually solve the shoulder tapping problem?
Well, it goes much deeper than a standard wiki. It is a living operating system. Instead of relying on a junior employee to bravely message a senior engineer to ask how a process works, the entire company's workflow, decision-making logic, and problem-solving history is exhaustively documented and searchable.
Oh, wow. So they write everything down.
Everything. And they pair this with incredibly structured asynchronous mentorship.
Async mentorship, meaning you don't have to be online at the same time.
Right. You don't need to align time zones for a video call to get feedback. The feedback is built into the workflow through recorded sessions and explicit guides. They actively replace accidental observation with deliberate documentation.
That makes a lot of sense. You are systematically engineering the tacit knowledge so it isn't tacit anymore. But what about the AI side of the paradox? If a company brings in AI, the junior tasks still vanish.
They do. But smart organizations choose to restructure the role around complementary activities. Let's look at the Boston Consulting Group as a prime example of AI-augmented training.
Okay, wait. If an AI is doing the heavy data preparation, which is classically the exact job of a first-year consultant who stays up until 2 a.m. cleaning Excel files, what are the juniors at BCG actually doing all day?
That is the brilliant pivot. BCG didn't fire the juniors. They changed the daily routine of the young analyst. Instead of spending 8 hours building a basic financial model, the junior uses AI to build it in 30 minutes.
Massive time saving.
Exactly. Then they spend the next 7 hours learning how to stress test that model for hallucinations, how to validate the outputs against real-world constraints, and how to synthesize that data into a compelling narrative for the client.
Oh, so they move up the value chain.
Yes, the firm trains early career staff heavily on prompt engineering and output validation. They're essentially teaching 22-year-olds to act like 28-year-old mid-level managers.
That's incredible.
It accelerates their critical thinking because they spend less time on manual data entry and more time on strategic analysis. It's augmentation, not replacement.
But that requires a fundamentally different type of entry-level employee, doesn't it?
It does.
Because if you need a 22-year-old who can immediately jump into high-level strategic synthesis and output validation, the traditional college pipeline might not cut it anymore.
Which creates a secondary problem, yes. And that brings us to alternative pathways. If you can't just hire a kid out of college to do rote tasks, how do you find raw talent? Companies like IBM completely dropped 4-year degree requirements for many of their technical roles.
Really?
Yeah. They realized that a generic computer science degree doesn't prove you can validate AI code. Instead, they look at demonstrated skills through specific coding portfolios and rigorous technical assessments.
So it's show, don't tell.
Exactly. They're hiring for adaptability rather than credentialism.
And what about the physical office? I know we talked about remote work being a culprit, but none of these solutions involve forcing everyone back to a cubicle 5 days a week?
No, because forcing people back to a standard open plan office doesn't actually fix the mentorship problem.
No, it just makes people miserable.
Right, in a modern open plan office, everyone just puts on noise-canceling headphones to survive the distraction,
Yeah.
which paradoxically reduces interaction.
So true.
Instead, look at how HSBC approached their hybrid model. They actually ditched individual assigned desks entirely to create what they call learning neighborhoods.
Learning neighborhoods. How is that different from a normal office layout? What is the mechanism making that work?
It is acoustically and geographically designed for overhearing conversations without being a nuisance.
No, fascinating.
A learning neighborhood clusters a specific team, say, the junior analysts and the senior portfolio managers, into a shared, collaborative zone with soft seating, shared screens, and project tables.
Like a dedicated hub.
Yes, when the senior manager takes a complex client call, they do it in the neighborhood. The physical space is explicitly optimized for junior-senior collaboration on the days they are in the office, rather than just housing people for independent work.
It's deliberate design versus accidental proximity.
Perfect way to put it.
You can't just put people in a building or on a Zoom call and expect magic to happen anymore. You have to actively architect the experience. So what does this all mean?
It means we have to be intentional.
Exactly. If we zoom out from the case studies and the statistical models, the disappearance of junior roles is undeniably multi-causal. AI and remote work are operating simultaneously, knocking over the tree together.
Yep, the wind and the rain.
But whether you are a manager trying to build a resilient team, a learner trying to break into a new field, or just someone trying to understand the modern economy, the key takeaway is action.
We can't just wait around.
No, we have to stop waiting for definitive academic proof of which trend is worse. The companies that survive the next decade will be the ones that start viewing junior hires as an immediate cost center and start viewing them as an existential investment regardless of the technological weather.
This raises an important question, and it is a structural problem that I think every listener needs to deeply consider as we look to the horizon.
What's that?
We spent this entire time talking about AI taking over the foundational entry-level tasks. The basic coding, the data cleaning,
Yeah.
the preliminary analysis. But we have to remember how AI models are created. They are trained on human expertise. They learn from the output of highly skilled professionals.
Yeah, humans make the data.
So if generative AI successfully automates all of those foundational tasks today, and the current generation of experienced senior workers eventually retires over the next 20 years,
Oh, wow.
who is going to be left to train the AI of the future if humans never get the chance to learn the foundational basics themselves?
Wow. That is a truly chilling thought. We could be looking at an economy with no talent pipeline, trying to teach increasingly complex machines with knowledge we've completely forgotten how to build.
It's a real possibility.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. The workplace is shifting beneath our feet, but as we've seen today, the solutions aren't out of our control.
Not at all.
Keep questioning the consensus, keep looking for those hidden variables, and most importantly, keep learning. Until next time, remember to look past the empty desks and ask yourself what kind of future we are actually building.